All right, I cut a whole lot out of this chapter because there was just, these chapters are very long, but the big thing that you guys need to understand, especially if you're taking the test, is, well, I guess not the test this year, but in the future, some things you'll need to understand are phylogenetic trees and phylogeny. You guys remember those?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. So when you look at phylogenetic trees, you can see that some traits actually developed multiple times. This legless lizard here actually evolved from a lizard that had legs. So you've seen legs kind of come and go many times throughout its phylogenetic history. So all that phylogeny is the evolutionary history. Who's related to whom? And they set these up simply so we can watch how changes happen. If we have a legless lizard and it evolved from a legged lizard, what information could we get from those two species? If we compared those two species to each other, what genetic information could we find?
They related?
Yeah, but what about the differences?
DNA.
Yeah. How about the gene for legs? Do you think you can compare the legless lizard and you could compare regular lizards and figure out which gene coded for the legs?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting information. If you look right here, this is the ancestral lizard. All the way in the back, it had limbs, and that eventually led to the geckos. Oh, did I tell you guys? We had a death amongst the burger class pets over this.
Oh, the one with the tumor?
Nope, he's still
No?
alive. Nope.
Who died?
Gizmo's still alive. Spyro died, the female
What?
bearded dragon. Yeah.
The bearded. Wait, why? Why?
I'm not sure. When I went to get her out of school when they let me in, she was this very odd yellow color.
Oh,
And
no.
she just wasn't moving and wouldn't eat, and then she died.
Oh
Is
my
the male-
God.
Is the male one depressed?
Well, the male one actually got adopted for this break by a friend of mine who has sons, and they really wanted to play with reptiles. So he's probably pretty darn happy because he's getting played with all the time.
Oh, okay.
So,
That's literally the only one I would hold. That's really sad. Poor thing.
well, you'll have to hold Sprout now because he's very nice as well.
How are the lizards? I mean, the geckos.
The geckos are good. Gizmo's going strong. Dash is going strong. The snake just went off to my friend's house last night, who her daughter really wanted to have a snake for a while, so she's very
Oh,
excited.
that's nice. That's good.
Yeah. They're all getting adopted out. It's good because they were all on my dining room table, and that's not so good.
Oh my gosh, no way.
All right, so in this phylogenetic tree, it's showing an ancestral lizard that had limbs, and it's showing the different branches. So you see the leopard gecko, or the geckos that came here. This one came out all by itself. We're going to talk about this in a little bit, and it's going to be referred to as an outgroup when it kind of took off by itself. But it could also go this way, and we had this branching happen. Every time there's a little point right here, this is an ancestor of the species. And this ancestor led to snakes, and then another branch happened over here that went to the iguanas and lizards. And then once again, you've got that no limbs. So there are some traits that can come and go at different parts of evolutionary history. And it's just whether or not it's something that is a useful trait. If you're born without limbs and you can't find food and you can't find a mate, are you going to have any ability to pass on your traits to the next generation?
No.
Yeah. So if this trait ended up working out for them, it got passed on, and if it didn't, then they died. Remember, natural selection is not politically correct. It's not caring. It's not going to go out and help the low-lying creatures. If you don't have the greatest traits, you're going to die. And that's his life. You guys remember taxonomy?
Yeah.
What was the guy's name that came up with taxonomy and binomial nomenclature?
Oh, I used to know.
It's a fabulous name.
Oh.
You guys should name your children this.
Jennifer Berger?
That would be awesome. No. His name was Carolus Linnaeus. Carolus. Assad, you should name your son Carolus.
Careless.
Yeah. I think that would be awesome.
I think I'm okay.
Oh, whatever.
I'm gonna name my kid Social Distance.
I'm sorry?
Social Distance.
Good Lord. Okay.
Social distance.
Oh, jeez. Oh. All right. So before him, they were still using Aristotle's two groups. We had plants and we had animals. And that wasn't very good in grouping organisms because it left out a whole bunch of them. So Carolus Linnaeus came through and started working on taxonomy. And he was the one that came up with our binomial nomenclature. What does bi mean?
Two.
Two. And nome means name, so this is a two-name naming system. The first part of the name is the genus, and the second part of the name is species. Does anybody remember genus and species? Have you heard those words before?
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody know our binomial nomenclature name?
Homo sapiens.
Homo erectus.
Homo sapiens.
Homo sapiens.
Ooh, hi, that was way over there. And homo means man in Latin, and sapien means wise. So they used Latin because at the time everybody was speaking Latin, but also it's really, really descriptive. All the different names mean something, and it helps you to understand who you're talking about. So Homo sapien, it's kind of sexist, whatever. It should be like person and not man, but you know.
Yeah.
When you're writing these, you always have to underline them. The first letter of the genus is capitalized. The species name is italicized. You can't really italicize as a human being. I don't know how many of you can write as a italicizer, but I can't. I can barely write in legible handwriting. But the way you would write any scientific name is first one's capitalized, second one's lowercase, and then they're both underlined when you're handwriting it. Why do you think that scientists use these really weird, hard names? Why don't they just call them man?
There's everybody speak Latin. Everybody speak Latin.
They used to speak Latin, but why haven't we changed it today? Why do we keep it in these weird, hard words? Just to make science students in pain and agony?
Depression.
Depression. But think about it. If Erica discovered some wonderful cure for Homo sapiens and she wrote a scientific article because she called Homo sapiens Homo sapiens, somebody in Indonesia would know what she's talking about. Somebody in Timbuktu would know what she's talking about because all science people know that humans are Homo sapiens. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The thing is something like, have you ever heard of the cougar and the panther and the mountain lion?
Yeah.
Those are all the exact same species. They're called different things in different parts of our country. That gets confusing.
What?
Yep.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
Cougar, mountain lion, and what?
Puma and panther.
Wow. Oh, I got you. Okay.
Yep. And then you guys all know roly-polies, right?
Yeah.
When I moved to California, I got laughed at so badly because they didn't call them roly-polies. And the first time I said that, the other kids were like, what is a roly-poly? And they totally laughed at me because they called them pill bugs.
Ew.
So when you call them different names, it gets very confusing. Nobody knows what you're talking about.
Oh.
So scientific naming is very important. You guys remember the classification? Oh.
Yeah.
Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Did you guys ever have to memorize those in order?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Do you remember your little mnemonic for it?
No.
I learned when I was your age, King Philip called out 50 good soldiers.
Oh.
couple of years ago, I had one of my students come up with his own, which was King Philip cut out Fred's guts suddenly.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a little harsh. And now, because we like to
He's probably in jail
probably.
now.
Apparently, Richardson has some mnemonic for this, and the last word is sex, but I've not.
Oh, I used to be in his class. I could probably figure it out.
Yeah, I don't do that one. But as you can see on this diagram, since I've been in school, they've even changed things more because now we've got domains as well, which is a bigger grouping. Oh, hi, I didn't mean to do that. If you look down at the bottom, the domains are either the bacteria, the archaeobacteria, or the eukaryotes. So we are all part of the eukaryotic grouping. And just for fun, in case you ever wondered, yes, my friends, you are part of Kingdom Animalia. You are in the same grouping as ants, slugs, butterflies. I've actually had Bio 2 students tell me, I ain't no animal. Then what are you? A fungus? No, okay. So we are also, our phylum is Chordata, which is, we have a backbone. Our class is Mammalia. Our order is Primatae in Latin. And then our family is Hominidae, the hominids. And then we have Homo sapiens. Yay, that's you. Aren't you excited? Yes, Mrs. Berger.
Yes, Mrs. Berger.
Oh, that's so happy. All right, so here's a phylogenetic tree. In phylogenetic trees, you're going to have different distances representing how much time has gone between these guys separating from each other. So if you look at the common ancestor of Carnivora, all the way back on the left, we had the panther separate from the other groups way back in the beginning. See how much longer that line is?
Yeah.
In phylogenetic trees, these lines are trying to give you a sense of time. And at any point where you have that number 1, this is a point where you have a common ancestor. And these are all carnivores. And you can see when you get down to like the Canis genus, Canis latrans, Canis lupus, Canis familiaris, those are all the dogs, and you can see how they'd be similar to each other, correct?
Yeah.
Most phylogenetic trees go from left to right, but you'll always start wherever the lines start. And this is a long time ago, and this is more recent. So you read them that way. That's going to be your homework. It's not very hard, but just give you some practice. And then I added this because we're interested about ourselves, aren't we?
Yeah.
Looking at a phylogeny. Ooh, my mouth's not working. With us and our ancestors, Australopithecus was what they thought for a long time was the first upright walking organism. Then they found some that started walking upright before then. And you can see how the skull has changed, how we've evolved over time. What do you notice about the difference in skulls starting from?
The jaw gets smaller.
The jaw definitely gets smaller. And that's why we're having problems with our wisdom teeth now, because we don't have enough room for them. How about the cranium? How about the part where your brain is?
It's a little bigger.
Yeah, it's getting bigger.
It's more round. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. And that came with a price. Holding that big old head up is not really evolutionarily great. It is hard on our neck. It's hard on our back. So that does cause some problems. Having that big old brain does cost us some. Well, most of you have a big old brain. Sorry.
So do you think we'll evolve to like some point where like it won't be a problem?
We're going to have to evolve to getting a bigger neck, a thicker neck. Yes. I'll have to share with you guys an article sometime that I read a long time ago, and it was about the evolution of humans and what is going to need to happen to our body to really support upright walking and our brain, and like how our body would really need to change to better support everything. It's pretty interesting. They have a picture on there. It's scary looking.
I think I've seen that.
Yeah, it's cool.
I've seen one where it's like, how would we look if we were evolved to like be immune to like car crashes or something?
Ooh,
It looked disgusting.
oh, I bet. Ooh. All right, so each point on those phylogenetic trees I was talking about, where you've got a branching, these are called branch points. You see number 1 here and number 2. Right where those two branch off from each other, that's called a branch point. Then when you get over here, all the way on the side, each individual grouping is referred to as a taxon. And if they're real close to each other, like look at taxon B and C, see how they branched off pretty recently from each other? Those are called a sister taxa. That means they're more closely related. Then you can have a basal taxon, which means this guy's off all by himself. He evolved way before the rest of them and was still going strong. One of the big things that students have problems with on evolution is, why do some animals not change at all over time? And why, when some, like taxon G, it branched off and other taxons changed and then this one stayed exactly the same? Why didn't they evolve as well? A big complaint I have students asking me about is chimpanzees. If chimpanzees were a very far back ancestor of ours, why are they still here? Well, if you're still doing groovy, if you still have a niche, if you still have food, if you still have the ability to reproduce, you're just going to keep going. Now, another group might have a mutation and it branches off, and maybe they have some other trait that makes them successful, so they keep going on. But then you can see some where maybe there's another branch like this that comes out and it just stops right here. What do you think that means?
Extinction.
Didn't
Yeah.
work.
What'd you say, Alexa?
The mutation didn't work.
Right, it was a bad mutation. It gave them a disadvantage. So if we have different branches, we can have stuff called polytomy. Let's show you where this is on. Where is it? I skipped it. There we go. If you have a basal taxon, that's the one that's going to go off all by itself. It's called a rooted tree, if you can go all the way back to the last common ancestor. And then you have polytomy, and that's a branch that has 2 or more groups emerging. Do you guys see the branch here? Number 5, how it had 3 groupings come off?
Yeah.
That's just called polytomy. So these are going to show descent, not necessarily similarity. Look here. Are these guys really all that similar to each other?
No.
No. Do you often think of a badger and a wolf as being very similar to each other?
No.
Who would you rather run into while you're on a walk like Assad?
Badger.
Badger.
For sure, badger and otter. I don't come across no stinking wolf. So they don't really indicate when the species evolved or how much time or how much change occurred, but it just is showing descent. One descended into another. And there's a whole bunch of space in between. Look at all this space. Another thing that people really have problems with when you're talking about evolution is time. Look at how much time is going between each of these branches. So they could have little changes, and little changes, and little changes that add up to a whole new species. So this is not like a chimpanzee gave birth to a human. That never happened. Look at all these things that happened in between. Chimpanzee broke off way up here.
Wow.
So there was never a chimpanzee and a human making babies. Actually, a subspecies, the bonobo chimpanzee, we're more genetically related to them than we are chimpanzees. But even still, they branched off way up here. Ooh, where did I go? There we go. They branched off right here and went on their own separate way. And we didn't come into the picture till way down here. You always have to remember, we're not that amazing because we're very new. Chimpanzees, bonobos, all these other people, they've been around for a long time. We're new and we've already screwed up the planet. Amazing. So here, this is interesting. This example that was in your book, they used phylogeny to figure out some meat that was being sold in an Asian market. And a lot of meat can be sold in an Asian market that is just labeled whale meat. But there are some whales you're not supposed to eat because they have really high levels of mercury. So when they went and they actually did a genetic analysis of all this meat that was being sold in the market, all these red ones here were actually species of whale that you should never eat because it has too much mercury and it'll give you mercury poisoning.
Ooh.
See? Phylogeny could save your life. Very important. It's amazing. I've heard of several stories now where people in Asia are selling different fish or different marine animals that have really high levels of mercury to their own people, and it's going to give them brain damage. It's terrible.
Wow. Yeah.
All right, so one thing when we're doing these phylogenies is to try to figure out if something has a similar trait. Is it due to homology, which means homo in Greek means same. So this is similarity due to a shared ancestor. So you have similar bones to bats and birds and all sorts of things because a common ancestor had those same bones. But analogy is due to convergent evolution. Let's see if you guys remember this stuff. So analogy would be, or analogy would be, these guys are similar to each other, but they're not necessarily all that related to each other. They have similar shapes because where do moles live?
Underground.
Underground. So that's a great design body plan for living underground. They have the ability to burrow and dig with those big front paws. They have that slender body that's kind of streamlined. Another one are these three. Who knows what group a shark is in?
Oh man.
What animal group? Are they mammals? Are they reptiles? Are they fish? Are they birds? What are they?
Are they fish?
Man.
Yep, sharks are fish. How about penguins?
Mm,
Mammals? No.
Birds,
Ta-
right?
Birds.
yeah, they're slightly bird.
Yep.
They
And
lay
then,
eggs, right?
yep. And then dolphins are what?
Mammal.
Animal.
Mammals. Oh my gosh, by the way, if any of you guys have Disney Plus, there's this Dolphin Reef movie on there. It is incredible. The cinematography, oh my gosh. Side, turn your thing off.
Oh, my bad. That was off.
But they have all these underwater pictures and it's following this little baby dolphin and his mom, and it's precious. You should watch it.
Do they have
Anyway.
a discount right now?
Huh?
Do they have a discount right now?
I don't think so. But it's only like $6 a month. It's not that bad.
Really?
Yeah. It's not as bad as like Netflix or Hulu.
Yeah.
Anyway, so these three things, a fish, a bird, and a mammal, they're not very similar to each other. They're in totally different groups. But look at their bodies. Are their bodies similar?
I mean, the nose is like pointy.
Yeah, and the shape of them. Look at their overall body shape. How they have that curved, streamlined shape. It's because that is a great body shape for getting through the water. So these guys aren't that related to each other in a genetic or evolutionary sense. Their structures are similar to each other because of analogy, which is similar due to convergent evolution. Now, you've probably learned about homology when you were learning about evolution back in biology. Homo means the same. And this isn't just a chance thing. We don't all have these bones just because it worked out for our environment. We have these bones because our ancient ancestor had the bones as well. Did you guys know that when you're chewing on a chicken wing, it's like chewing on your own bones?
Ooh.
Isn't that awesome?
Oh,
So the next time you're chewing on a chicken wing, what are you gonna do?
not eat it.
You're gonna think, it's like I'm eating my own arm. Sorry, I probably just ruined chicken wings for you forever.
A little bit.
Oh, well. All right, now this is a cool thing. When we were talking about analogy and homology, we're just talking about how they look. What kind of data is that?
Facial.
2 Q words. Remember the Q words?
Oh, quality and quantity. No.
Qualitative and quantitative. So what
Right.
kind of data is this?
Qualitative.
Qualitative, yeah.
Qualitative, right? It's just a description. Their shapes are the same. Their shapes are the same. That's not great data, especially for doubters of evolution, which there are many in this world. What is quantitative data is when you look at the DNA. Now that we can sequence the DNA of things, oh my goodness gracious. Here's two species that had a similar sequence of DNA, and this is just a little sequence. This is not all of their DNA. But look, if species 1 had a deletion and species 2 had an insertion mutation that happened, look how their DNA has changed.
Wow.
So now computers can take the DNA of organisms that are different from each other and match them up. They can find the regions where their DNA is similar, and then they match those up, and they look at the areas where they're different, like right in here, and they just leave blanks, because that's saying, oh, for this species here, they must have had an addition mutation, some sort of insertion right here, because all of these were the same, and these were the same, but this guy maybe had a deletion here, and this guy maybe, so they can go through and try to figure out what is different between the species, to figure out how different species form, what genetically happened to make something different enough to cause a different species.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can look at these things, just even in humans, then we can see areas where problems occurred, why a genetic disease was caused, what mutation it was. And then with CRISPR, what could we maybe do? What?
See what it does, what it changes.
Right, we can figure out which mutation caused these problems, and with CRISPR, maybe we could go in and fix it. Ah, remember that, CRISPR? Genetically engineering our babies to be perfect. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
Maybe. That's kind of creepy. All right, so here's another one. It's just showing how they're lining up areas where they have similarities. And we can look at these to make something called a clade, a cladistic graph. A cladogram is very similar to a phylogenetic tree. It looks a little bit different. Each little branch is called a clade, and they always start out with a common ancestor. But they don't have the like longer and shorter branches all the time. They're just showing how they're related now, not how much time has passed. And when they're finding new fossils of organisms, maybe they haven't found all the ancestral species yet. So you can have a clade that's monophyletic, which means that it has some of the ancestors, or it has the ancestor species in all of its descendants. So this right here, monophyletic, we've got a common ancestor between these three species and all the descendants. If you have a paraphyletic or phyletic group, you have a common ancestor in most of the descendants. This guy got left out if you're just looking at the shaded part. And polyphyletic, that means you've got descendants that are similar to each other, but what are you missing? What is not included here?
Common
ancestor, right. So when they're finding new fossils, they can't build the whole clade right away. They can't build the whole cladogram because they don't have all that information. So maybe you start with a polyphyletic group. You found these guys that are similar to each other. And then over time, you might gain a common ancestor. And then over time, you might have the common ancestor in all the descendants. Yes, Liana?
Oh, nice, it worked. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so when I was like taught this, like just that line in general, that was like considered like a common ancestor. So what's the symbol for that?
Which line was a common ancestor?
One that you just had your arrow at, the one that didn't have one, like how would you know?
Well, in this situation, if I only had this right here, if I only had these written and it didn't show this area right here at all, if only the shaded part.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good about the raise your hand thing. I've never seen where that is, so where is it?
Here, I'll show you. So it goes participants, and then like it has everyone's name, and then at the bottom right, it says raise hand. And then you can like lower your hand too.
I don't see that on mine. I wonder if it's because I'm hosting it.
I think I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Whatever. What if I would have raised my hand? Oh, well. I'll remember that next time I have to go to a Zoom meeting with the entire darn school. That's super
Oh, wow.
fun.
I can't even
Aren't you
imagine
guys-
that.
Aren't you guys jealous?
Actually, kind of. I want to see what they
Honestly,
do.
yeah, I'm kind of like missing it.
You
They
guys
do
would
that,
really
like-
enjoy just the science department Zooms. However, the whole school Zooms, not so much. Science
Wow.
department's a little snarky.
No way.
Yeah. All right, so here's showing again, Liana, the different groups where we have the paraphyletic. So it's got, like maybe they just realized that the hippopotamus and the even-toed ungulates were similar to each other. They know a common ancestor. But when they were doing all this digging for fossils, they hadn't found the dolphin group and the seal group yet. So that the paraphyletics where you've got most of it, but not all of it.
Mm.
The polyphyletic. Do you guys see this like red and orange box in the middle of my screen?
No.
No, that must just be on my end. It's like for the sharing part, and it always gets in my way.
Who did the drawings on your window?
Oh, those are my kids.
Assad,
Ah.
He's stalking my house, guys.
Oh God.
It was like a neighborhood thing. You were supposed to put pictures in the windows so that when people were out taking walks, they'd have things to look at.
Oh, I saw that and some teddy bears.
Well, there's a teddy bear one too, so I have a teddy bear on my porch.
Oh, our neighborhood did that too with the drawings.
Yeah,
Hmm.
kind of fun to look at when you're walking around.
Yeah.
You guys should do that for your own neighborhood.
I've already done it. Yeah.
No given. All right, now this is looking at the similarities in groups again, and actually in your worksheet that I'm giving you for today, I'm gonna make you draw a phylogenetic trait. It's gonna be super fun. But if you look here, this is showing where the vertebrate column, the lamprey has it, the bass has it, the frog has it, the turtle has it, the leopard has it. So that tells you if a whole lot of them have it, that must be a trait that started way back here in the beginning. We have the vertebrate column forming, oops, right there. Then we have something like hinged jaws. Only 4 of the 6 had them. So this must have been an area of branching. And then the 4 walking legs, and then the amniotic sac and hair, and you can just continue to separate each other this way. We're gonna look at similarities in amino acids. Who remembers what makes amino acids?
Proteins.
Amino acids form proteins, but what forms amino acids? How
Katie
are
here.
amino acids brought in?
Katie.
Monomers?
They are the monomers of proteins.
Nucleotides.
Remember, DNA to RNA, RNA to
Oh.
protein. So it's that RNA that codes for the amino acids, right?
Ah,
Do I need to put the song back up here, the Central Dogma song?
maybe.
Maybe. All right, so the out group is a species that is related to the in group, but it's kind of diverged more than the rest of them. So looking at this picture here, the lancelet is the out group because, poor little lancelet, it didn't get a vertebral column or hinge jaws or 4 walking legs or ambion or hair. It's just like a little parasitic sucker. It just has a sucker mouth and it sits at the bottom of the ocean and sucks stuff off rocks. So they don't have any of the cool traits, so they're out there all by themselves. So it's almost like an outcast group. But they're important too. Everybody's important in the ecosystem. The rest of the organisms in here would be the in group.
Why is that so? That sounds like a Mean Girls reference.
It does. Oh. Have you guys ever seen Heathers?
Yes.
No.
Oh, I watched that the other night. I forgot how horribly mean that movie is. That's like the original Mean Girls.
But it's so funny. It's so good.
That's when I loved Christian Slater. So cute. Anyway, who is the out group here?
The Drosophila.
Drosophila. Right. Very good.
Fruit flies.
What'd you say?
I just said fruit
Fruit
flies.
right. So here you can see when they add a timeline, you can get a little bit more specific when these things happened. Cenozoic, that was the age of the mammals, if you remember. Mesozoic was the age of the reptiles. So you started seeing all of them come in. Paleozoic was the age of the fishes. So that's when you saw all of them coming in. And you can look at the different sizes based on how long ago they broke apart from each other. Oh, look at this. Does this surprise you at all? Did you guys all remember that birds
And dinosaurs.
are closely related to reptiles? Remember those flying flying dinosaurs that were around for a while?
Yeah, the pterodactyl.
Yep.
Nice.
Here's a common ancestor of that kind of reptile and bird combo situation, where it did have some feathers and had reptilian traits as well. Pretty cool, huh?
Eggs. Wow.
Mhm. Awesome.
We
All right,
just-
so I gave you a worksheet on the Google Classroom. Let's see if I can pull that up. Technology is really hard.
Oh, you see me before me.
All right, can you? Hi, everybody. I can see your faces again. There you go. Guess where half of my Zooms are me trying to figure out where I want to go.
Big oof.
Okay, can you see my Google Classroom now?
Yeah.
Don't laugh at me, Assad. I'm gonna TP your house.
And I'll fork your house.
Oh, I knew it was you.
No, that wasn't me. I
Uh-huh.
promise. I did not know that was a thing until you sent a picture. I did not know forking houses was a thing.
Wait, what happened?
My house got forked a couple of months ago where somebody got out of their car and pushed a whole bunch of plastic forks into my yard. I don't know.
On
I thought it was
purpose?
funny.
Not me.
I blamed Assad.
There's so many kids from our school that live in this neighborhood. You probably pissed off one of them.
Yeah, I piss off people all the time.
Your one neighbor whose party you crashed in the basement.
That was awesome. Oh. You guys need to see, if you guys had had prom, I could have busted a prom party. That would have been awesome.
You could have thrown a prom party.
Oh, yeah. They have enough kids over there. They could have their own party. All right, so
Oof.
right here, I have analyzing phylogenetic trees. Tried putting it in, I'm trying to move it into a Google Doc so it didn't become a formatting nightmare when you guys go to do it. But you're going to go through and look at all these different phylogenetic trees and look at outgroups. And then this last one is you're going to make your own phylogenetic tree. Doesn't that sound awesome?
Yeah.
All right. Does anybody have any questions?
When is this due by?
I put it on there for Tuesday, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that's not bad.
Did everybody get through the mastering biology?
Yeah.
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 I feel good
Wasn't
about
bad.
it. That's iPhone.
What'd you say, Alexa? Saad, are you being loud again?
That's good. I liked it.
All right, there you
No.
go. What'd you say, Alexa?
I liked it. I liked the mastering biology.
Good. So it wasn't too hard this time?
Yeah.
Meredith, why does your thing say Allison on it? Oh,
Because my computer broke. Isn't this the most terrible timing?
that is
Yeah.
horrible.
My computer broke like 3 days ago. Like I can do everything on it. I just can't click on anything. So like you can't do anything.
Oh,
So I have
geez.
to share with my sister these days, which is also kind of hard because she's in school too. But
Oh, man.
gosh,
That stinks.
can't go to
Maybe-
that or so.
No, I'm sure not. Oh, that stinks. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, it's fine. It's working out.
Well, it's good to see all your faces.
Yeah, we miss you.
I miss you guys. Oh, hi, Assad. Now I can see your face.
Still Assad.
College and still walking.
Oh my
If
gosh, the
you-
cats are cool.
If you guys weren't at the AP review yesterday, I did just before this. I put that kind of file into a YouTube video, so I'll put it up. But all I did yesterday was give the kids a free response question, and they worked on it under a time limit, and then we went over the answer.
How long was the time limit?
25 minutes. It's Ethan's house that was loud. I muted you, Ethan. So I'll put that up in a little bit. Next Wednesday, people that were there was only 3 people.
Yeah, no, okay. We started off with like 10 and then only 4 left.
So if anybody wants to practice FRQs or go over anything, we're doing those on Wednesdays at 11:30. Okay?
Yeah, Miss Berger, for
Yeah.
the tree thingy, do we have to like format it a certain way, or can we just print it because it looks kind of wonky?
You can print it. I was also, right before this started, trying to get it into a Google Doc so the formatting wouldn't be all goofy. So I'll post that.
I opened it up in Google Docs and it wouldn't let me like write on it, so I copied.
Okay, yeah.
That's
Try
what I
and
usually
figure
do
out
for
this
your
Word to
assignments.
doc thing. It's very hard.
That's okay. We'll figure it out. Nah, that's whatever. I'll print it anyway.
Yeah, if you don't have a printer, I will put it up as a Google Doc in a second, and then you can just write on it and turn it in.
What's for lunch today? Our lunch already happened, right?
Well, no, I skipped lunch right now, so I think my daughter may have made me some pizza rolls.
Ooh.
Fancy around here.
Some what rolls?
Pizza rolls.
Oh wow, bougie.
Bougie, is that good or bad?
That's good. I just went to my
That's
chef
good.
too. I texted her that her family picture was bougie, and she was like, "What does that mean?"
Who said that?
Miss Chef. I was
What is-
texting her.
Does bougie
like-
mean good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it means like fancy, classy, like Beyonce's bougie.
All right, I'm a.
Bye, Liana.
Bye.
All right, you guys all have a good day. Get outside. It's beautiful.
Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.